Joining us today is a senator from California that I want to introduce you to, because you always hear bad things about California. There are good ones there, and we're going to introduce you to him as well. And John Graves will be with us as well today. Let's get this thing started. Mike Garofalo, I'm pitching it to you.
Just 6 months after he last warned Congress of the dangers of domestic extremists, FBI Director Christopher Wray is back on Capitol Hill today. Wray was summoned to the Senate to discuss the FBI's role in the January 6th Capitol riots. Wray is expected to be pressed on a handful of issues, including information on how the Bureau shared intelligence before the attack. As has been reported, an FBI intelligence report describing plans for violence at the Capitol was sent by email to lower-level officials the night before January 6th. It was never read by Capitol Police or Washington, D.C. leaders. In a well-named bill, California Senator Brian Jones last month introduced the Religion is Essential Act, also known as Senate Bill 397. It requires that the governor and local governments treat religious services as an essential service during any declared state of emergency. It also prohibits the state and local governments from discriminating against a religious organization during an emergency. And it requires the state and local governments permit religious services to continue operating during an emergency, among other things. Greg, I'm going to send it back to you.
Thank you. Well, let me introduce you to that senator. You know, California, we gave you a story yesterday where the government there is trying to make boys and girls, you can't have two separate things in stores, will be fined. But there are good ones on the ground. Here you go. Republican Senator Brian Jones represents the 38th State Senate District of California, encompassing most of inland San Diego County. He's an avid constitutionalist, and he deeply cares about freedom and liberty. Proudly serves as the vice chair of 3 Senate committees there in Sacramento. Senator Jones, welcome to Victory. Good to see you, sir.
Thanks, Greg. I'm glad to be on with you guys, and good morning.
Good morning. Tell us about this bill and what you're endeavoring to do there in California.
Well, this bill was brought to me by some constituents that are very involved in the state of California with registering and getting out the vote among people of faith. And as we went through the pandemic closures in California over the last year, remember, it was 50 weeks ago that we started 15 days to flatten the curve. And in California, we're still, we didn't flatten the curve flattened most of us. And so this was brought to me by some constituents that are concerned about the ability in future pandemics or future emergency declarations of churches, synagogues, temples, being able to remain open and serve their constituents and their congregants. And when we've got a state government and governor's office that's out of control, we haven't been able to trust. The courts have been all over the place on this issue across the country, the circuit courts, the appeals courts, and the U.S. Supreme Court, as a matter of fact. Now, fortunately, a couple of weeks ago, the U.S. Supreme Court did find in favor of South Bay Pentecostal Church and allowed churches to reopen in California. But that's not clear enough. So we decided we need to put this in code and make sure that we are that the legislature is governing and restraining some of the power that the governor has put upon himself to negatively impact Californians.
Senator Jones, thank you so much for being with us. International evangelist Luis Palau and his family could use your prayers today. His family says after battling lung cancer for more than 3 years, he's taken a turn for the worse, is now receiving hospice care. Palau was born in Argentina, but moved to Portland in his 20s to attend graduate school in biblical studies. He's said to have had a long and very close relationship with the late Billy Graham. Over the years, it's believed he has shared the message of Jesus Christ with well over 25 million people in at least 70 countries. John Graves, I want to bring you in here from that story and your thoughts on that. And then I want to ask you if you'd say a prayer for him for us.
Yeah, I'd love to. Men like that are really what the focus is. We cover all these stories about politics and the culture and all that, and sometimes we can get lost that it's the church and bringing new people into the church, not just mobilizing people that are already in the church, but bringing new people in. So, Father, we just pray for Luis Palau, for his family, for his last days. God, you number our days, you know our days, and we ask for a supernatural grace to be over him. We thank you that you'd raise up a whole generation of men like him and Billy Graham that would, in a new way, in their generation, like David did in the book of Acts, in his generation, serve your purposes to bring people into evangelism and to discipleship in the name of Jesus.
John, you just hit on something, God raising up people in different places. And you talked about Luis Palau there, but we just introduced everybody in America to Senator Brian Jones, who God has raised up to literally stand in the lion's den there in California. Are you encouraged by that?
I'm very encouraged by it. And what I would love to say about Senator Jones is we need a whole lot of people like that in all 50 states. And what you see, look at the theme of every news story. You've got the state attorney generals attacking an attorney general or somebody in the Justice Department that wants to defund police. You've got them fighting for women's rights. You've got them fighting for religious liberty. You've got them fighting for election integrity. Every single one of those stories is happening at the state level. We need a lot more Senator Brian Jones out there in all 50 states. And if you're a pastor, if you're a business owner, a Christian business owner, or if you're a believer that believes in faith and freedom, you have a great amount of influence if you will just call and influence and stand with these people, pray for these people, and be one of these people. Go out there and run for these offices, because it's at the state level, not the government control, federalism kind of where they take over all our lives. That's the best chance that we have to push back on some of these issues and promote the cause of Christ in this nation.
Well said, John Graves. Thank you very much.
Well, Greg, as you know, last week's CPAC convention, the theme was America Uncanceled. Well, a majority of Americans believe the cancel culture is a threat to our way of life. A new poll found that over 64% of those surveyed believe that cancel culture is a threat to our freedom. The number of affirmatives in that poll jumped to 80% when just Republicans were responding to the Harvard-Harris poll. It dropped to 48% when just Democrats were included. Big surprise there. The question asked, do you think there is a growing cancel culture that poses a threat to our freedom? Greg?
Well, here we go. We're talking about canceling culture, and here we are with another one. YouTube has now suspended former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani for the second time. The video sharing site claims he violated the platform's policies regarding the election. YouTube reportedly told news outlets the suspension is not permanent and will be over in just a couple of weeks. All right, I want to bring Senator Brian Jones from the San Diego area back in with us today. Senator, you've got a recall happening there in California. We've been following it here on the network. It looks like it's going to happen. So are you running for governor? Can I recruit you?
You know what? I think I could do a pretty good job as governor here in California. You know, maybe some of your viewers don't know I was born in Texas, so bringing some of those Texas conservative values to California would be helpful to our economy and certainly freedom-loving Californians. We've got too many Californians moving to Texas, so I might be more able to run for a governor in Texas because I got a lot of voters moving that way.
You do. There are a lot. Yeah, you do. Many of them are.
Don't let them
mess
up. Don't let them mess up Texas. So. No, I'm not running for governor. We've got, a couple of people running already. And, California is a big state, just like Texas. And in California, it takes several tens of millions, if not $100 million to run for governor. And so I don't quite have that fundraising base yet, but I'm working on it.
Well, I thought I would try. So this whole cancel culture thing, a lot of it stems from social media there in California. Is it popular there, or is it just it's very unpopular in the middle of America, I can tell you that.
What's that, social media?
Social media and all the things that we're seeing, that it seems to all stem from California. That's the way it's portrayed here.
Well, all of these companies are headquartered in California, right? But again, some of them are moving to Texas. So this cancel culture thing, this is not new in America even. And certainly not new globally in other countries. We've had factions of American government from the founding that have tried to cancel, censor, ban, burn books. And there's a tweet that I saw the other day. It says, if you're in favor of banning books, canceling people on social media and eliminating social media, are you sure you're on the right side? And so I think that's a good question for all of these folks that are, advocating to censor others. That's not what America is about. America is about, regardless of, what you have to say, the ability to say it, and, let the chips fall where they may. If you say something crazy, then, people are going to react to that, as they should. If you say something intelligent, people are going to react to that. And it's incumbent upon all of us to come up with a message that resonates, is truthful, resonates, and gains people to our argument.
Senator, that's so true. John Graves, I want to bring you in on this. You had your hand waving there. I've noticed exactly his observation. The people who want to burn books and stop free speech are usually not the nicest people historically.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack here. To me, part of the problem in our culture is we demonize our opposition. It's a lazy form of debate. And so when you don't have a good ground to stand on, you just demonize your opponent. And the problem is, we talked about Luis Palau earlier. We're talking about all these culture issues. You can't bring people in if you can't have a free and fair conversation. If there's no free speech, you don't have a free exchange of idea. Jesus is very clear that if you seek the truth will come. Well, if they can silence us, that's how they do it. I was so offended when they first, even in Texas with our governor, made essential services not a pastor, which I am, but as a lawyer, which I also am. So I got to come to work. I got to drive to work because I was a lawyer, and the governor just, as a dictator, decided what was essential, what was not. And the problem, and this is where people need to wake up. If enough of us stand together, if enough of us use our voice, it's like Rudy Giuliani. Same thing happened to me last week with YouTube. If you even question that there were some irregularities, if there was fraud, if there was unconstitutional behavior in the election, they suspend those videos. Well, what they're doing is saying, if you don't agree with us, we want you silenced. And so therefore, of course, Tim mentioned this earlier, in the survey, in the poll, Democrats were okay with it because their side is still getting to talk. It's our side that's not getting to talk, and that's a serious problem. And if they continue this overreach, my hope and prayer is they will break up all these monopolies. Facebook, Amazon, Google, every one of them.
John, real quickly, we were talking earlier about the senator's bill there in California about making churches essential. What does that say about our country? We actually have to have a bill that says churches are essential.
It shows where the state of it is. And the bad news is we've got some Supreme Court justices, hopefully just because they're new, and Amy Coney Barrett and Kavanaugh, that aren't standing with us on issues and clear constitutional violations. But we at least had 6-3 opinion in that case saying, well, they didn't give us everything we want. You can't still worship in church, but you can at least be treated the same as other people. They should have superior rights under the Constitution, but at least they should be having the same treatment. And so there's people like Senator Brian Jones I commend, and I hope that God just continues to raise up a lot more of those people. And you got to remember, California, they flipped a lot of those House seats. There's good things happening in California. This recall is a good thing. There's a trend that can happen. It wasn't that long ago. States will trend back and forth one way or another. There's enough people in California that can wake up.
I want to put your email address up for people there in California. They can get a hold of you and tell us again real quickly, 30 seconds, about this bill that you're going to get passed through California.
Well, we just need to make sure that we put in state code that religion is essential, and this strikes across all faiths. It's not just a Christian thing. Jewish people, Hindu people, Muslim, they all have a right in America to congregate, to fellowship, and meet, to have their church services, their worship services, however they define those. And we don't want a future governor to be able to impact that in a negative way ever again. So that's why we're putting this into statute.
And there's his email address at the bottom of the screen right there that you can send them an email. Sir, thank you so much for joining us on Victory and speaking to the nation today. And we would love to have you back at any time, especially for a follow-up on this bill. Thank you, sir.
Oh, you know what? Once it warms up in Texas, maybe I'll come out and do in studio. That'd be fun.
That would be an honor. It'd be great to have you here with us in Texas. It gets really hot here, by the way. I'm just going to warn you. John Graves will bring you back in the last 15 seconds before we go.
You know, what we show you on Victory News is people that are making a difference. So be like a Senator Jones, support a Senator Jones, wherever you live in your state. Go run for these offices and get behind people who do.